Murderers, serial killers, and spree killers. Terms that are heard and used every day to describe the most depraved act of killing another human being. But there is one kind of monster that lurks in the shadows of nuclear homes, filled with loving partners and innocent children: the family annihilator. Recently, the Chris Watts case took over US news outlets as we all witnessed firsthand what a seemingly normal family man is capable of. But Chris Watts wasn't the first, and tragically, he is not the last. In today's case, we're taking a closer look at the murder of Megan, Alec, Tyler, and Zoe Todd, at the hands of the man they trusted most, their husband and father, Anthony Todd. Anthony John Todd, called Tony by friends and family, was born September 29, 1975 to parents Robert and Loretta in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. The family welcomed their last child a few years later, named Chrissy. Tony's father, Robert, was a special education school teacher at Bensalem High School, where he also coached wrestling. While married, he began seeing a 21-year-old nurse, Colleen Fetcho, and was also rumored to be seeing one of his 17-year-old students. According to Colleen, the two were engaged and due to wed on April 19, 1980. Not one to question boundaries, he solicited another former student, John Chermonte, to kill his wife for $800. Robert supplied John with a .32 caliber pistol to shoot Loretta. Initially, John was supposed to surprise Loretta at the hospital where she worked, but was too nervous. Instead, on March 19, 1980, exactly 1 month before his pending nuptials with his mistress, Robert gave John a key to his house and advised him to make it look like a robbery. John later alleged that Robert even gave him permission to assault his wife if desired. That evening, John entered the home through the garage and shot Loretta in the head through the eye, before rustling through the drawers to make it look like a burglary. Tony, just 4 years old at the time, woke up to his mother's screams and walked down the hallway where he could see a man exiting his home and his mother bleeding from her head. After being arrested on a separate charge, John confessed to the murder-for-hire plot and quickly implicated Robert as the mastermind. Unbelievably, Loretta lived through her ordeal, and even more unbelievably decided to stand by her husband during the trial. Robert only admitted to the affair, feeling guilty for being with Colleen on the night of the attack, instead of at home where he could have protected his wife. He insisted that he never intended to marry Colleen, despite her testimony that they'd made wedding plans under the guise that he was divorced. Robert suggested that his wife was attacked in some sort of Manson-style cult ritual, but the jury didn't buy it. John Chermonte was only sentenced to 4 years in prison for his cooperation and testimony against Robert Todd. Robert was sentenced to 15 to 20 years for the crime. He later appealed in 1984, but the conviction was upheld, though his sentence was lessened. Finally accepting that her husband tried to have her killed, Loretta divorced Todd and remarried. She and her husband took the 2 children to Connecticut to start over. Tony suffered from nightmares and had some difficulties recovering from the traumatic experience, but eventually he assimilated in school, where he excelled and was fairly popular. It was at Montville High in Montville, Connecticut that he would meet fellow student Megan Gula. Megan was born to parents Albert and Gail in New London on January 28, 1977. Megan is described as a kind soul that was interested in the environment as well as being health conscious. Megan also loved music. At Montville High School, she was the drum major for the band, played the flute, and sang. She also played tennis and performed well in her studies. The pair were inseparable and went to college together at Sacred Heart University, where they studied physical therapy. The couple married and moved to Colchester, where they opened a physical therapy practice called Family Physical Therapy, and Megan was a rehabilitative yoga instructor. On September 26, 2006, the Todds welcomed their first child, a son they named Alexander. 2 years later, on December 30, 2008, they had another son, Tyler. Like their mother, they both had a love for music, and Alec had become quite good. They dabbled with other instruments with their mother, and Megan enjoyed passing on her musical interest, talent, and explorations to her children. The boys loved being outdoors, swimming, and playing soccer. They also enjoyed playing basketball with their dad. Alec was noted as being gifted in school and all other endeavors. He loved reading, especially military history. Alec was quiet and more serious than little brother Tyler. Tyler was funny and carefree, often the joker of the family. Like Alec, he was also gifted in school and particularly good in math. In June of 2014, a small dog they called Breezy joined the Tot family. She was a loving and faithful companion that was often seen outside playing and traveling with kids. Anthony and Megan welcomed their last child, a girl, on July 23, 2015, named Zoe. Like her mother and brothers, Zoe loved music. She sang and danced and played instruments like her little harmonica. Zoe is remembered as the sassy one. She was headstrong and full of life, not afraid to play with her big brothers or exert her authority over them. Megan thrived as a mother and decided that the place she wanted to be was home with her children, so she could homeschool them and help them grow. She was into healthy living and cooking and planned fun activities for her children to learn and explore. Tony's practice was highly successful, or so it appeared, and he was beloved by his patients. He was well known for being both a caring therapist and family man. Tony doted on his wife and children and was often seen outside playing with them. He coached kids soccer and was a pillar of the Colchester community. The Tot family also had a love of Disney and visited Florida to experience the parks. In 2017, the family decided to sell the Colchester home and move to Florida full-time. The town of Celebration, Florida was once owned by the Walt Disney Company and built to be an idyllic and self-sufficient family town. It is located in Osceola County near Disney World and serves as an extension of the Disney atmosphere, even after being sold. The Todds purchased a condo, but only Megan and the kids would live there full-time. Tony kept the therapy business open during the week and spent half of his time there in Connecticut, staying with family or renting rooms. On the weekends, he would fly back to Florida to be with his family. They eventually outgrew the condo and began renting another home in Celebration. The kids started attending classes at a Montessori school nearby and began piano lessons, and everyone had seemed to have settled in. However, the Todds' lifestyle was becoming less sustainable, and Tony tried various methods to maintain cash flow to include rental properties and taking out loans. When those options proved futile, Tony went another route. In a desperate attempt to pay his bills and his creditors, Tony started to bill his clients' insurance companies for services not rendered. By the fall of 2019, Tony's total debts and fraudulent charges were totaling more than $500,000. Clients of family physical therapy started to notice the false claims to their insurance for visits they never attended, some of which were dated for times when the office was closed and Tony was in Florida. The FBI soon became privy to Tony's scheme and interviewed him, where he admitted to the fraud. Tony's world was crashing down on him. The FBI were sure to arrest him, and he was on the verge of being evicted from both his home in Florida and his business space in Connecticut. Tony flew back to Florida just before Thanksgiving with the promise of returning. His employees had not been paid, and the FBI awaited his return with his attorney to be interviewed after the holidays. The entire family was seen on December 14th at a piano recital that both Alec and Tyler performed in. On December 22nd, an eviction notice was filed for their Florida home, and on January 6th, an eviction notice was issued for one of his business locations. During this time, Tony's sister Chrissy calls the police to do a welfare check on the family on December 29th. She had been told through text messages that they had all fallen ill over Christmas, but she had not heard from the family in over a week.
I'm wondering if somebody can do a wellness check on my brother and his family. They've been really sick for probably like the past week and a half, and I can't seem to get a hold of them.
Okay, give me just a moment. And let me see, I think you said two.
I'm calling from Connecticut, so so there's no way for me to easily check. He doesn't have any other family down there.
Give me one moment, please. All right. When was the last time you heard from them, ma'am?
The last time I physically talked to him was on, last time I physically talked to him was either Monday or Tuesday, and he was texting my sisters and I up until Thursday. Was supposed to call us between yesterday and today, and we haven't been able to get a hold of him. I can't get a hold of him, my sister-in-law, or even my nephew.
Okay, what is your name?
It's my cell phone.
Now, that address, is that an apartment or is that a house?
He's renting a house.
Okay.
But he flies down to he lives up here during the week and he flies down for the weekend, so he usually has, I think he's got a rental when he goes down there.
Okay, what is your sister-in-law's name?
My sister-in-law's name is Megan Tote.
And do you have a phone number for her? You said they were sick or something like that you mentioned at the beginning?
Yeah, they've been really sick. I guess they've had the flu. But they've had the flu probably for a couple weeks. They were really down and out during Christmas. The only one we've been able to talk to is my brother, and now, like I said, we can't get hold of any of them. We heard from him. I think it was last time. Like I said, I heard from him was Thursday, when he was supposed to call us. He was supposed to check in with us yesterday, and then he was, because they were doing their Christmas yesterday, supposedly, and then he was supposed to call us today.
Osceola County Sheriff's Office on a recorded line. This is Operator 100 speaking. How can I help you?
Hi, I just called a few minutes ago to request a wellness check for my brother and my sister-in-law.
The police notice nothing out of the ordinary at the home and leave. After Chrissy becomes aware of the evictions and investigation against her brother, she continues to try to contact him but receives no response. Other friends and family members had received strange messages from Anthony and Megan's phones about going off-grid and turning their phones off, and other messages about the apocalypse or end of times. She calls police once more for a second welfare check on January 10th.
Osceola County Sheriff's Office is on recorder. This is Tiffany. How can I help you?
Hi, Tiffany?
I'm sorry? Is that what Stephanie?
Hi, I don't know who I need to speak with. I'm curious if I can have a wellness check done.
What's the address for the wellness check?
The address for the wellness check is... I had actually called on December 29th, and I had an officer go out because I was concerned. My brother and his family, they had all been sick. But there's actually been more developments. There's actually an active FBI investigation that's happening up here in Connecticut. And I just in conversations with my sister, my sister-in-law was making a comment about, and we just kind of put it all together, about basically the world ending on the 28th, and nobody has talked to them. Nobody physically talked to my sister-in-law since the 26th of December, and my brother has stopped texting as of Monday. So I don't know if there's a way that somebody can go out. They are renting a place. They're actually being evicted from that property. But that's the last place that we know that they were supposedly at. But they have a condo that's right around the corner as well.
Okay. What's your phone number?
My sister-in-law's name is Megan, M-E-G-A-N. Last name is Tote, T-O-D as in David, T as in Thomas. My brother's name is Tony, T-O-N-Y. Same last name. They have 3 kids.
And so they think the world is ending and you're worried they're going to
Well, there's an active FBI investigation up here in Connecticut, and I'm concerned because of that, because of a lot of stuff that's been happening, that there could be something a little bit more happening. I forgot I'm wrong.
You said Connecticut? I'm so sorry.
Yes. We live in Connecticut. The investigation is here in Connecticut. He flew back to Florida on the 22nd of November. We didn't find out about all this until the week of Christmas, and we've had a very, very hard time getting anything from him, and he has stopped all communications. And we have not spoken to Megan. Nobody has heard from Megan.
You said since Monday. That was the
6th. The last time anybody talked to my brother, text my brother, not even talking, text my brother was on the 6th.
Yeah, does anybody have any medical conditions?
Yes. My sister-in-law, we're not exactly sure. That's the other part of this. Supposedly they were all sick with the flu around that time, but she has some liver issues, and there could be some other health issues that I'm not 100% sure of, but the last time that we had and like I said, I called down on the 29th, the police did go, they checked with the neighbors, and the neighbors said that nobody had been there. I had been messaging some of the neighbors, but it's just really strange.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke with one of the agents up here, and he even recommended to call back down there and see if we can have another wellness check.
Okay. All right, I have a call and we'll get somebody out there, okay?
The police once again visit the home but make no contact with anyone inside. At the same time that Chrissy is searching for her family, the FBI has also been searching for him since he didn't return to Connecticut.
What's the warrant for?
Healthcare fraud.
Okay.
Federal offense. Federal warrant. So we would be transporting. We just need assistance just to have some marked units there. We're not sure if there's children in the house. He does have 3 children. His wife should be there, but that's an unknown.
Has he made any threats towards the children or the wife that you know of?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Has he made any threats towards the children or the wife that you know of?
There's concerns there. I don't know of any direct threats, but there are concerns. He does know that he is being investigated. We have executed a search warrant.
Okay.
As far as we know, he's tapped out all his finance resources, and he has not contacted his family in over a week.
Okay. Do you know if he has any weapons or any history of having weapons on him?
Unknown.
Are there any vehicles in the driveway in case he tries to leave on any of them?
There's a garage, but it's funny. He's at the house, but their only vehicle that we know of is parked over at the apartment, which is a couple blocks away. But somebody did see him in a white SUV like a week or 2 ago, but we don't have any record of him owning a white SUV.
On January 13th, the FBI obtain a search warrant and make their way into the Todd residence. Inside, a foul odor hits the investigators first, and they arrest Tony once he comes downstairs. After arresting him, they ask him where his family is. Tony, mostly incoherent, tells the police that he isn't sure where his children are, but his wife is upstairs, and he then calls for her. Only no one answers or comes down. The investigators begin to sweep the home, and in the master bedroom, they come upon a horrific scene. Megan, her 3 children, 13-year-old Alec, 11-year-old Tyler, and 4-year-old Zoe, and the family dog Breezy were all laid down on mattresses, covered with sheets, their bodies in an advanced state of decomposition.
I'm Osceola County Sheriff Russ Gibson, and I wanted to give you the latest update on the death investigation that occurred at 202 Reserve Place in Celebration. I just want you to keep in mind that this is still very much an active investigation, and I'm going to attempt to answer your questions at the end of this, but there's still some things that I won't be able to divulge at this time. On January 13th, 2020, Osceola County Sheriff's deputies responded to 2002 Reserve Place in Celebration to assist federal agents from the Department of Health and Human Services in serving a federal arrest warrant for Anthony Todt. Anthony Todt's date of birth is September 29th, 1975. Deputies made contact with Anthony in the home along with federal agents and he was immediately detained. A safety check of the home was conducted where deputies discovered 4 deceased individuals inside. The home was immediately secured and a search warrant was obtained by our detectives. Detectives and forensic investigators began their investigation and crime scene processing. The medical examiner's office also responded to the scene, and an autopsy was done the following day. The reports of the autopsy determined that the cause of death of the 4 decedents inside the home to be homicide.
Tony was brought to the Celebration Health Hospital for treatment after he stated he consumed a large amount of Benadryl. After he was cleared, Anthony was interrogated at his bedside.
We've been following videos on Guyana.com, which is an intellectual, spiritual, emotional site. They talk about a lot about space travel, that kind of stuff. It's different things. Talk about how things made, it's different outlook on it. And things have regressed. My wife is, I want to say chronically ill. The liver issues and all that kind of stuff because of bad medicine.
The liver issues?
For my wife.
Yeah. Okay.
She's in constant pain and everything. Mm-hmm. And it was brought to me that the patient, the client, will seek you out and seek you out if you're out there advertising, listen to things, okay? He, in the meantime, where everybody's fine, no problem really. And then for some reason, America said okay, this is gonna be the day because we have a window to get to this. It's an area of light.
Okay.
Okay, higher intellectual aspect about that. And I was like, how do we get here? Okay, let's do this. And
Just take a deep breath. Slow down. Okay.
No, sorry.
If I can get you some water, I'll get you some water.
Let me finish this. Because I'm very forgetful the last couple of days. So right before Christmas, I'm trying to remember the day, we had this conversation, and they said, okay, what do we need to do? Do we need to do more meditation prayer? Do we need to go to the temple? Do we need to do what? And what was told to me is that when people die, they go to different aspects, and then sometimes never meet up in the light energy aspect and that kind of stuff. Okay, so we came to the conclusion. First, we sat down with the kids, and the two of us, we were talking and running stick and that kind of stuff. And the two older ones understand. The little 4-year-old doesn't understand, but she'll do anything for a while. And so, Friday, what should we call it? And Friday night, it was supposed to be a three-step plan, so that we all stay together and go up. You know, one person separated to the other. The unfortunate thing, we got them to carry over and crossover. I'm still stuck here with a world I don't want to be in.
Okay.
And then Meg went next. She didn't want to be the last one. I said, okay, no problem. So she played through her song and singing that kind of stuff. And then we stayed upstairs. And she had one of my, I call my hunting, my fish hunting knife. So she stabbed herself in the stomach. We're very versatile. She stabbed herself in the stomach and also up here, near her chest. Did work. Finally, she started taking Tylenol, freaking big. So long story short, after she tried stabbing herself again, it didn't work. So she upped the equal, whatever it's called, and did it, and it didn't go through. And she said, you gotta do something. I'm like, what do you want me to do? And she told me she put the pillow over her face, suffocate. I said, I can't do it to you, honey. She goes, if you love me, you will. I want to be with my babies now. I don't want to be in this world and die of pain. So that's how where it ended up.
Tony said that he killed Zoe first.
The baby.
The baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how did you do it?
I laid next to her. And I say just laid on top of her. And
You laid on top of her?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where did that happen at?
Her bedroom.
Her bed or her bedroom? Where at?
At our house.
Oh, I know, and I'm saying, but where at? On the floor, in her pillow?
On the mattress.
Mattress.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything on the pillows.
Okay. So you laid on top of her.
Mm-hmm.
How was she positioned?
She was positioned then on her back. I can't remember where the arms were, but she was definitely on her back.
Okay. So where was her face at?
I really don't know, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wish I could tell you. I don't know.
Okay. So you're basically saying that you laid on top of.
Zoe.
You started with the little one.
Mm-hmm.
What's her name?
Zoe.
Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And suffocated her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Next, Tony said he killed Alec with Megan's help.
Okay. So after your daughter,
Uh-huh.
then who was next?
I started to Alec.
Alec?
Yeah, my son.
And how old is he?
13.
13.
Yeah. So she asked me which one, because we knew we had to suffocate him also.
How did you suffocate him?
I put my hand.
That's fine. Just tell me.
The palm over above the nose and the opening out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And held that as Meg tried to hold them together. Tried to hold them.
Was he kicking and screaming?
Mm-hmm. He was kicking.
And Megan helped?
Mm-hmm.
According to Tony, the couple then moved on to Tyler.
Okay, then who was next?
Tyler.
Tyler?
Yeah.
How old is Tyler? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is he like 12, 13, 10?
He's younger now. He's
Okay,
like
so the other one's 13.
Yep.
Zoe's 4.
Yep.
Okay. So where was he at?
Downstairs in the, we have a library downstairs with a pull-out couch. So we looked there.
You and your wife?
Mm-hmm. And she left beforehand and left it to me because he started kicking and everything. I asked why she left, and that's why.
After the pair killed their children, Tony explained that his wife went upstairs where she attempted to kill herself with sleeping aids and stabbing herself before she finally asked Tony to suffocate her. Anthony was brought in again for questioning after being released from the hospital on January 15th, where he reiterated his story that he and his wife killed their children in order to reach salvation.
And so we started researching where would be the easiest to stab to do so the kids could bleed to death, maybe in combination with the sleep drug. Okay. And that's how everything led up to be.
Okay. So that's through research.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have found, now you're saying you and your wife did this together?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in doing all the research and everything, how did we get to Monday morning? Take me back to the holidays. When do you think the children died? That type of stuff.
I'm still trying to remember when the children died. I can't put those pieces together.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
We wanted the kids to stick around for the Christmas holiday concert because we didn't want to disappoint that.
Did you guys celebrate Christmas Day?
No, the kids are there before Christmas.
Because family is saying that we were sick. Well, that they spoke with Megan the day after Christmas. Was Megan alive the day after Christmas?
No, she died right the day after the boys did.
Right. I remember you saying that the other day. That's why. But I've made contact now with your family and with Megan's family, and so Megan's family is 99% sure that, looking back through cell phone records and stuff, that they spoke with her, not text message. They spoke with her the day after Christmas.
No.
And she said the children were sick.
No.
Okay, so you're adamant that they died before Christmas?
Yes.
Okay. The children, you said, died 24 hours or so a day prior to Megan?
Correct.
Okay, so let's go to the day of their death. How did this go down?
Woke up at 11:30 at night. We set the alarm for 11:30 at night and got up out of bed. And it was to Zoe first.
Okay.
Meg walked into the room, then she walked back into her room.
Step by step. So you guys are sleeping in the master room, I'm assuming?
Yes, my wife and I, yes. And the dog.
And the puppy, okay. Which boy was upstairs?
Zoe was upstairs in her room.
Okay.
Alec was upstairs in his room. Tyler was asleep downstairs in the library room.
And why again was he down there?
The two of them were sick, so we kept them apart.
Okay. All right. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. So we walked to the door, Zoe's door. Meg and I hugged and kissed, and pretty much we know what you need to do. Come back at me when we're done. So I went in Zoe's room, and it took me 2 or 3 hours sitting there because it's a tough. But the everlasting salvation and the thought of that everlasting salvation was there, and I needed to save her soul when her to be with us. Rain kept coming in. What's going on? I'm like, it'll be done in a little bit. It'll be done in a little bit. It's getting past that. I'm not that guy, you know. The initial thought was to stab into the umbilicus above the navel, so I could get the inferior vena cava or the abdominal aorta and be bleed out within no time whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I know I tried. I don't know if I ever punctured it. I don't know if I did or not. I saw a little mark on her, but I don't know if I saw anything. But then she rolled and started squiggling, and I put my hand over her mouth and then put a pillow over top of her. So she went, and then she started to fade away. And I just held that until there was no motion left.
So you didn't lay on her?
I did lay on her when she lay on her belly. I'm sorry. I laid on her to keep her down, and I put the pillow on top.
Okay. Do you think you stabbed her or no?
I don't know. I didn't see anything.
Okay. So how long would you say it took you to take her life?
The whole motion,
Yeah.
like from the minute I was sitting in there, or from.
Well, I'm saying once you initially take action, okay, did you have a knife with you?
Yes.
Which knife did you have with you?
The small knife.
Which is what color?
Green.
Okay, that's the green buck knife that you talked about?
The green buck knife, yes.
Okay, all right. So you had that in her bed.
Mm-hmm.
So how long from the time that you had the knife out into the suffocation until you think that she was deceased?
I want to say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right around there. It seemed like that night took forever, so it's hard to really gauge on the time.
Zoe is deceased.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens next?
Walk out. Stood with Megan in the room for a little while.
How was the body?
How do you mean?
How was the positioning? Where was the pillow?
There was a pillow behind her head, and her hands were out to the side, and I made sure the covers were on top of her, just in essence to keep her warm.
Did she have anything in her hands?
No, I had put a rosary in her hands later on when I moved.
When you moved the bodies?
When I moved the bodies, yes.
Okay, we'll get to that. And that was post-rigor?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, we're getting a little bit ahead of us.
No, that's okay.
I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry. Okay. So Zoe's gone. You and Megan console each other, whatever you guys have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
We go into Alex's room.
Alex's room?
Yes. The one next to the bathroom, the one upstairs.
Well, upstairs. Okay.
Yeah. And beforehand, we had talked about the aspect of she's got to hold his feet down, and I'll do the stab.
How old's Alec?
13.
Okay, so he's the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so what happens?
We walk in. He's on his back. She's just sitting there holding his feet together. We're just in there, just eyeing each other, just gaining the confidence, I guess, you know. And I go to, I stabbed him, and he started kicking, was trying to get up, and he kept rolling. So I ended up putting there was a pillow there, and I put a pillow in the back of his head so he wouldn't hit me with the back of his head. And then I reached around with my hand and held his nose in his mouth. And he kept rolling and kicking and rolling and kicking, and then it eventually stopped.
Where was Megan at?
Megan left midway through there and went back to the room.
How long would you say it took to kill Alec?
That one I have no idea. It went quickly, but I don't know.
Okay. And there was blood and everything in his bed?
On his bed, yes.
Where did you stab him?
In the stomach, the same spot that we identified as where you could get the inferior vena cava.
And what area did you call that?
Inferior vena cava?
No. You called it earlier.
Abdomen.
Yeah, I mean, it's an overall the abdomen, but I think you used another term earlier. It was the one that you specifically spoke about above the navel and
Umbilicus.
umbilicus.
Yeah, the umbilicus.
Okay. Is that something that you researched and learned, or you knew that from your profession?
Research and learn ahead of time.
Okay.
Especially on a website called Quora.com.
And spell that again.
Quora.com.
Quora.com.
Yes.
And what is Quora? If I go research this, what is it going to show me?
Quora.com, you can ask anything they want, and it's people feedback. We happen to find it just by looking up knife techniques. And you ask it anything, and it'll show you, and it'll tell you and explain to you the best way to do things and where to do things, and suggestions how to commit suicide.
I was going to ask, is it like a suicide website, or is it a...
It's an everything website.
So I can go in there and say, how do I change the oil on my...
That I don't know.
Is it like medically based, or...
It's not medically based. It's a lot of topics that people talk about, but don't, I guess, talk about on the internet. I just used it for suicidal techniques and also to get ideas how to do it with a knife.
When were you doing your research on Quora.com?
Started that before Halloween.
Before Halloween?
Yeah.
Where did you learn of it? I know you may have said this. Where did you learn of Quora.com?
I happen to be just researching knife techniques. And it comes up, and a couple of questions came up as,
Okay, so Alec is gone. What happens after that?
I walk into the room, Meg and I console ourselves, and she turned to me, she goes, we have to finish this, there's one more left, let's go, before the sunlight comes up.
Okay.
I said, okay, so she says, I'm gonna go downstairs, I'm gonna stand, because the way the downstairs is, the way the downstairs is, I don't know if you saw the house. Once you got it, my Tyler is the strongest kid, and my Tyler is the quickest kid. And if he got out of the room by chance, it wouldn't help the situation.
Why not?
Because we wouldn't be able to catch him, hence we wouldn't be able to all go together.
Was there fear like maybe he would
get away?
Like outside of the home, like alert neighbors or something? Or?
Yep.
Okay. So it was almost like a quick, I don't want to say like attack, but it was a quicker movements with him.
Yes. But same thing. Megan stood outside the door, just in case, so the door couldn't open. And I had gone in, and he was laying on his laying parallel. He was laying on his left side, and I was able to get in and get the knife right in there. I got it. It started bleeding quite a bit, but then being strong, he kept moving. So then again, I put a pillow on top and my hand, and he went really, really, really quick.
So a lot of blood?
I didn't see much blood because I had him covered up, like how much blood came out. I could feel the blood coming out because it was all over my hand, but it was bloody.
Anthony retells the same story about Megan's failed suicide attempts and her relenting to having her husband suffocate her. He also reveals that he stabbed their dog Breezy as well. Tony then waited for the bodies to come out of rigor mortis before he moved his children to the bedroom to be with their mother. He wrapped them in blankets and placed rosaries in their hands. He then claimed to have taken a large amount of Benadryl in an attempt to take his own life.
So the children have been positioned. Okay. You guys are coming back together as a family. And I'll use your words. I mean, you've chickened out at this point.
The knife.
Yeah, with the knife and the type of stuff. The pellet gun, during the course of this, was attempted. How come you didn't graduate to a real gun?
Because in doing so, I had to... Sorry. It was a whole 3-day wait list.
Well, we were before... days have passed. I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad idea looking back on it.
It's one of those, it'll happen this way, it'll do it this way. Sometimes when I took the Benadryl, I seriously went to sleep for like 2 days. It seemed like 2 days later, you know. And
Where would you sleep at?
either next to Megan in the attempt or somewhere in that room. Sometimes right on the edge, on the floor down there,
Okay.
between the bed and the window. Every time I said, "Well, let's try it," and it's like, "Well, now I gotta depend on that for 3, but we can get it done quicker." And then,
The power was on during this time frame?
yes,
Where'd you guys keep the temperature? Do you remember?
I don't, but I want to say because I was in charge of it because I was over there, 68.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay. Up in the room, I think there was like some, I don't know if they were humidifiers, I don't know if they were moisture, what
they're not
were those?
humidifiers. Those are air purifiers.
Air purifiers.
Mhm.
Were those there prior to?
The white one by the window was there because we kept the air purifier going because we both have heavy allergies. The black one I brought in from the boys' room just to keep going. Then we use candles and that kind of stuff, and I did sage smudges and that kind of stuff.
For what?
Sage smudges allowed for spirits to pass on and that kind of stuff, so I wanted to make sure no one kept still.
Candles were for the same reason?
Yep.
So, it's been some time, and we weren't found, or we didn't get there till, what, Monday, which would have been the, what, 12th, maybe? 13th? What were you doing there during this time frame? We're talking over 2 weeks.
Trying to kill myself.
Were you leaving the home? Were you going over to the other place in Georgetown or whatever it is?
I went over to the other place once because my daughter really, really, really wanted her Mickey Mouse necklace. So I went up into the condo to see if I could get the Mickey Mouse necklace to find it in the jewelry box, and I couldn't find it.
So she didn't get it. Now, was that the only time you left?
No, I would leave every time I would be up because I need to go get either more alcohol, more Benadryl, and just food as we're trying to get through this.
Publix or fast food or?
Fast food, unfortunately, but I felt at the point that I went to McDonald's once or twice.
Okay. Were you checking the mail?
I checked the mail also.
Okay.
To make sure everything was, bringing in stuff so nothing would lead to suspicion out in front.
Okay. Deliveries, boxes?
Pulling them in because I didn't want anything to be seen during my being unsuccessful time after time after time.
Yeah. So there was like a pile of boxes and stuff like near the door? Were those like presents or what in the world was all that?
Pile of boxes near the door.
Yeah. So people at the scene were telling me that there was like, it appeared like almost like Christmas presents. Did the kids get to open Christmas presents?
No, they weren't alive for Christmas.
They were not alive for Christmas. Okay.
By the printer.
I think there was like packages or something like they were talking about. Okay. So during this past weekend, the power was shut off, is that right?
Sometime this weekend, yes. I'm not quite sure when.
Okay.
The recollections were, I don't really know, I'll be honest with you.
Did you often sit out on the front porch?
Out and sit out on the front porch? No.
Because the day that the agents and everybody were there, you were seen out on the front porch.
No, I don't know why. I don't remember that morning really, like how things matriculated. I just remember I pounded the door, and just hours before I'd already fallen down those stairs once before. So
Why is that?
my legs gave out, probably because I was so OD'd on Benadryl or dehydrated. I was peeing brown, so it was probably just so dehydrated or so whatever.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly how I got. Like I said, I remember hearing the door knock. So it was this fast knock. I was like, okay, so I came downstairs. And for something was telling me somebody was coming, and I did not know what the whole deal was. The night before, I remember feeling like the house was being surveillanced. And I was seeing all these red and green dots and things. I don't know if it was, I don't know what the cause of it was. But I came downstairs and I opened the door, and no one was there after the knocking, because it took me a while to get down there.
That was the night before?
No, that was that morning.
Oh, the morning.
Yeah. And after that, I don't have much of a recollection of, except a bunch of guys coming in, and I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't know why I was sitting out on the front porch.
The autopsy report concluded that the 4 Todd family members died from homicidal violence of unspecified means in association with diphenhydramine toxicity. Megan, Alec, and Tyler were confirmed to have suffered stab wounds, but no signs of suffocation were found. Zoe's body had been so badly decomposed that the medical examiner could not rule out that she had been stabbed. Based on the level of decomposition, the family is believed to have been dead for nearly 4 weeks before Tony's arrest. Inside the room, there were various mementos and trinkets that belonged to his family members. In addition, there were red nylon restraint straps fixed to the bed frame and an assortment of black zip ties, some of which had been cut, and first aid antiseptic spray on the nightstand. Upon Tony's arrest, he had marks on his hands and body, some of which were circular puncture-type wounds. A receipt for a pellet gun was retrieved, and it is assumed that he used the pellet gun on himself, as he'd stated in his confession. Tony would later change his story in a 27-page letter he wrote to his estranged father in June of 2020. In the letter, he claimed that he was innocent of the insurance fraud case, and that he was also innocent of the murders, that it was Megan that acted alone in killing their children, then took her own life in front of him. He says on the day his children were murdered, he played basketball with his sons, chasing and tickling them through the yard before heading to his other condo to retrieve a necklace and work on some tasks that he needed to complete without his children around to disrupt him. He told the kids to go inside when it started to get late and to remind their mother that he was going to stay the night there. He walked over to his van to get his keys and decided to take a siesta in his van before getting the necklace. He returned home and apologized to Megan for falling asleep, to which he claims that she responded, "You're alive, they didn't get you." He notes that she had a stain on her shirt, so he asked where the kids were. She said the kids were fine and explained that she'd had a vision while meditating, that the world was going to end by a virus attack. In order to reach salvation, she'd have to release the children's souls. He said that she'd fed them the Benadryl pie, suffocated and stabbed the children, and asked him to pray with her. He said that she took him to see the kids and that the setting was peaceful. He said he wiped their faces, held them, and cried. He demanded that she give them their phones, but she said she'd hidden them. He says he went to throw away some of the Benadryl packages, and when he returned upstairs, he was startled with a strange sound and then saw his wife stabbing herself. She also continued to drink bottles of Benadryl. He claimed he couldn't go to a neighbor for help as they were likely not home, and that he didn't want to break his promise to Megan that he wouldn't leave her. He used CPR to try to revive Megan, but was unsuccessful. He then gathered his children in the same room as himself and his wife and placed rosaries in their hands. From there, he says he remembers nothing other than his attempts to take his own life. He claims that he only knows about his calls and texts with friends and family because of what he'd been told since his arrest. He claims in the letter that there were several factors that contributed to Megan's depression, such as her estrangement from her mother, her father's suicide in 2002, her battle with Lyme disease and other ailments, and her loss of feminine features.
I don't remember anything pretty much over Christmas and the first week I got here. I don't remember coming.
She wouldn't tell me anything because I feel like I've had to. It's really hard on this side trying to just see if you're okay.
I don't even know what is going on.
Is Mom okay?
Okay, you don't have to answer.
Well, no, hold on. Give me a sec to think of that. She's okay. I mean, obviously she's very upset. She's reliving a lot.
Tell her I love her, please.
I will.
Also, but the night everything happened, okay, I'm going to tell you this. I went over because Zoe wanted her Mickey silver necklace for reasons you'll find out later. I fell asleep I was supposed to wake up at 11:30, and didn't wake up the next morning. She had my wedding ring on her thumb.
Okay.
On her left thumb.
So then I need to, okay, so I will figure out, I don't know who has your necklace then.
There are several inconsistencies in his letter, mainly that he reported that his wife was so weak, often needing his assistance in getting up the stairs or bathing, yet she was strong enough to stab herself and then move about the room. There were smaller inconsistencies in what he told his sister over the phone and what he described in his letter about his nap in the van and search for the necklace. He also added that her vision contained an apocalypse by way of virus. It just so happens that just before his arrest, news of the COVID-19 virus had hit the US. But it was likely that Megan hadn't heard, since she'd supposedly been dead since before Christmas. He also claims that upon his arrest, he'd been thrown down the stairs by one of the deputies, causing injuries to his hands and arm, a claim that has never been substantiated. Anthony Todd's trial took place in April of 2022 for approximately 1 week. While on the stand, Anthony continued to tell the story that Megan was responsible for killing their children.
When you said what had happened with Megan, what were you talking about?
What had happened that day when I came home?
Which day?
I don't know.
You don't have to talk about calendar date. What was the occurrence that made that day memorable?
I came home and my kids were dead. It was the most horrible day of my life. And what made me more horrible is my wife died in front of me also.
Have there been a blueberry pie that was cooked in the house?
According to what she told me.
Objection hearsay.
And
Hold on just a sec, Mr. Tote. Response.
Describe what you know or saw and not what you heard from another person, if you can.
Thank you, sir. When I came home that morning, I knew my family the night before was having dessert, and I declined it because you saw my health. I was jogging and losing weight. I came home that morning, and there was a melted purple, looked like a pudding pie. I can't really tell you exactly what it was. She told me what it was later, but it was in a graham cracker crust. And the kitchen, it was my job to clean the kitchen. But when I came home, that purple, bluish, grapish, melted pie, I guess you want to say, in a pie dish, was sitting there on the counter with some residue on the kids, at the kids' places on their plates.
At that time you came in, you saw that there were desserts that had been served up on the table?
I saw the remnants of it, yes.
And then did you then discover that your children were dead?
Not initially, no. I had gone upstairs. Well, I had too much information, but I had to pee. So I went to the bathroom and came out, and my wife was at the top of the stairs. My house was very quiet, very unnormal having 3 kids, one 13, one 10 at the time, the other one 4 years old. She brought me in the room. I had been feeling nauseous that morning anyways, because I had these shakes I was taking for weight loss, all that. And around the same time that she was telling me I was puking. It was then that I understood what had transpired. She had blood on her shirt, and after that, after I said a few uncolored words to her, I then discovered the kids. I went into the rooms and found them dead.
You saw the video yesterday where on the 15th, Cole Miller and another investigator in a tiny room talked to you at length. Did you have an agenda for that discussion?
I don't even remember that day. Last thing I remember was falling down the stairs and smacking my head on the stairs, which resulted in a fracture on my neck. Next thing I knew, I woke up here. And seeing that video yesterday, That was the first time I saw that video. I had no agenda consciously, but I can tell you throughout my relationship with my wife, especially after she got sick, I would put myself as a forefront and take responsibility and protect my wife.
You said in the statement that you stabbed the children and there was blood everywhere. Do you remember that from yesterday's video?
I remember it just seeing on yesterday's video. I wasn't aware of anything I said till about June, so maybe June or July, 6 months after I got here when I got the transcript of what I said that day.
Why did you say that you performed the knife, the incisions on the bellies of the children?
It goes back to the aspect is I was covering for my wife. Obviously, unsuccessfully, because as you saw by the video, compared to what they said, I had no clue had my kids died.
Did you have ideas of joining your family in the afterlife?
After I saw everybody die, after I saw my wife die and saw my kids, most definitely. I wanted to be with them. That's the only thing I wanted to be. I didn't care by what means. I didn't care by what anything. I sliced my wrist. I took multiple doses of Benadryl. I tried to hang myself several times. I bought a pellet gun to shoot myself because I couldn't get a gun to, as you call it, eat a gun.
Did you ever try to poison yourself?
With Benadryl, yes. And also, I was just under recently of medical care and I was given metformin for diabetes. And at one point, I swallowed the whole bottle of metformin.
And which hand was on the knife?
Both hands were on the knife.
Both hands were on the knife.
Yes.
And you said that the knife was in her abdomen
Yes.
when you came out of the bathroom.
Yes.
What'd you do?
I stood there in shock. And I said, what the hell are you doing? And at that point, she says, I'm doing what I did to the boys. I'm trying to get my inferior vena cava. She said, I'm doing what I did to the boys. I'm trying to get my inferior vena cava.
Did you go for help?
I went over to my wife and pleaded for her to tell me where the phones were. She asked me not to leave her. She did not leave the boys.
So my question is, did you go for help, yes or no?
The answer is no.
After Megan dies, how long, what do you do? What do you do?
Well, we skipped over quite a bit there. I don't know if you want to go through everything or not.
What did you do after Megan died?
What did I do? I yelled out the window to see if anybody was around to help. There was some weird sound coming from her mouth. I thought she was breathing. I started CPR after I wiped her mouth off with that gray pillow.
Okay, so she stabs herself once or twice?
Like I said before, she stabbed herself a cumulative times of twice.
Okay. And these are right after each other?
That is no.
Okay, so what happens?
She stabbed herself the first time. I sat there pleading with her to allow me to find the phones, to allow me to leave her to go get help. My loyalty is to my wife. She did not want to be alone. I thought if I stood there, she said she was going through the inferior vena cava. I have medical experience to know that one of those major arteries will bleed out quickly. In the area of the house, we liked the house rental because there was no one around. Neighbors weren't there. Most of the neighbors around us were snowbirds. If I left her, I thought she was going to die. I thought in my decision making, the best chance was for her to tell me where the phones were. At one point, I hate to say I annoyed her. I was trying to convince her, trying to talk in her language, saying obviously the universe doesn't want you to go. She says, I want to be with my kids. I need to be with my kids. So I leave.
Objection, non-responsive. What do you do after Megan dies?
Like I said, I yell out the front window of our bedroom for anybody. Help, 202, please. I don't know where the phones are. I hear some kind of weird breathing, some kind of weird air exchange, something. No heartbeat. They never went over that in CPR class. But you know what? I was trying anything. So I started CPR chest compressions. And when I didn't see her breathing, I would do mouth compressions. I didn't care about the blood. I didn't care about all that.
What do you do after this?
At what point are you referencing?
What do you do the rest of the day? It's the morning. What do you do the rest of the day?
I literally broke down there and cried. Don't ask me how long, because I have no idea how long. I was in a state of confusion. I was in a state of whatever. I couldn't help my wife pass. I felt a failure. I wasn't there the night my kids were died. I felt a failure. I decided that I wanted to be with my family, that I wanted to die, that I deserved to die. I condemned myself to death. I was ashamed.
What did you do?
I sat there and cried for a while. At some point that I realized now, after seeing the receipt up there, I decided I was going to go and get a gun. At some point, as the receipt said, on 12/18, I went and purchased that first pellet gun. After I inquired with purchasing a gun to find out that there's a 3-day rule in Florida. I've never purchased a gun before. I purchased that gun, which was a pellet gun, that I was planning to give my kids, my boys, a Christmas present with. I left and came back.
What kind of gun were you trying to buy?
Any gun they would sell me.
Did you try and buy a shotgun?
No, I tried to buy, I was trying to buy handguns. I inquired with them. I didn't inquire on a specific model. I said, I've never bought a gun before. How do I go about buying a gun?
Are you aware that the wait period doesn't apply to a shotgun?
Ma'am, I've never bought a gun before.
Well, you inquired about buying a gun, right?
I inquired about buying a gun.
So, this trip to Academy happened after everybody in your family was dead.
That's correct.
You don't remember talking to the detective on January 15th of 2020?
Last thing I remember was falling down the stairs and saying, you hold on to somebody in custody, deputy. Next thing I knew, I woke up in jail. I thought I was in purgatory with the red floor and the bright sky.
Okay, so, you discussed a lot of information, wouldn't you agree, in the January 15th, 2020 interview?
From what I saw, yes, and from what I read, yes.
And you adequately discussed Megan's health conditions that you were aware of, correct?
Correct, the ones that she suffered for the previous 8 years with, yes.
And you also spoke about various trips to Academy.
That's what I said, yes.
And you went to Academy at some point as well to purchase a longer knife?
That's correct.
And isn't it true that you also said in the interview, you spoke about the note that was left?
That's correct.
And you told law enforcement that you printed it after Megan's death?
Correct.
And you testified here today that that wasn't true?
That's correct.
And that wasn't the first time you told that to law enforcement, was it?
Well, actually, let me correct the facts on that case, please, if you may. The initial note was the one I didn't print out. The note I found in my pocket after, which is the note Meg printed out, that I found in my pocket after I urinated myself in the garage after one hallucination and drank what I thought was coffee, but I'm pretty sure it was motor oil. I went into the house, stripping, and found the note in my pocket.
Which note?
The note Megan had left.
What was on that note?
On that note was essentially, I didn't read this note, but from what I recall, it said we did it to the family, which she referred to as family lineage. I had a different relationship, a different definition of family. And the other thing was where she wanted her ashes. At the bottom of that note, it said, Tony, I love you forever. Please forgive me.
What did you do with it?
What did I do with that? Yeah. I took it out of my urine-soaked pants and retyped it because I wanted my residual family, or my leftover, the family that was alive, to keep the knowledge that we were a family unit, and I wanted my wife to know. I want my wife's wishes known where she wanted the ashes buried. She wanted to be buried with her father, where we released the ashes at Harkness.
Was Megan's note handwritten or typed?
It was typed.
And did you ultimately throw it away?
I ultimately put it in the, there was a fan box in the kitchen. After I typed it, and I typed a second one that was, when I retyped it, there was some errors in it, so I put the urine-soaked one and the one with errands in it in that fan box. After I fixed the door with my father-in-law who died in 2002.
Case number 2020 CF 149. State of Florida versus Anthony John Tote. Verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Verdict as to count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Verdict as to count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of cruelty to animals. So say we all, dated at Kissimmee, Osceola, Florida, Osceola County, Florida, on the 14th of April, 2020.
In this case of family annihilation, Tony likely felt that there was no escaping the consequences of his actions due to his insurance fraud. Dire financial straits, often hidden from one's partner, is not an uncommon motive for these types of crimes. Rather than face his family, he chose to methodically take their lives, one by one. Whether or not Anthony intended to fully commit himself to his suicide plan will never be known. But we do know that he had nearly 1 month from the time he murdered his wife and children to do so, but never followed through. In one last attempt to shield himself from the consequences of his own actions, he blamed Megan for his crimes, including the fraud claims. In the end, the jury saw through his lies and Anthony is where he belongs. He is currently serving 4 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole in Blackwater River Corrections Facility in Milton, Florida. Megan, Alex, Tyler, Zoe, and even little Breezy Todd were a family that all had a zest for life. Megan and her children were all headed for a bright future filled with music, adventure, and fun. They cherished each other until the very end, and they cherished the man that took that all away from them.